To emotionally detach from someone is not simply a matter of willpower. It is not a task of the rational mind, nor an act achieved through mere decision-making. Emotional detachment is a deep, transformative process, one that asks us to look inward, to confront the unhealed parts of our psyche that cling to the image of another. When we form deep attachments, we often do so not merely to the person before us, but to the projection of our own inner world. In Jungian psychology, the unconscious mind plays a powerful role in shaping our relationships. We do not only see the person as they are, we see them as a mirror of our unmet needs, our unspoken desires, our unresolved wounds. Take a moment to reflect on the person you find difficult to release. Who are they to you truly? Are they merely themselves, or do they represent a part of your own soul that you have yet to understand? Do they carry the weight of past losses, the echoes of forgotten rejections, the longings you have buried deep within your heart? To detach emotionally, we must begin to understand these projections. We must become aware that much of what binds us to another is not solely rooted in the present, but in the echoes of our past childhood wounds, unhealed traumas, unmet needs. When we expect another person to fulfill these needs completely, to soothe wounds that we have not yet tended to ourselves, we place upon them a burden they cannot bear. Imagine a child who feels unseen, unloved, a child whose heart aches for validation. This child grows into an adult who, upon encountering someone who seems to understand them, clings tightly, desperately, fearing the loss of what seems like salvation. Yet, this longing is not just for the person before them, it is for the recognition, the love that the child within still craves. The first step in detachment is acknowledgement. We must be willing to see the person before us not as our savior, but as a separate being, fallible, imperfect, and unable to complete us. We must recognize that no matter how profound the connection may feel, it cannot fill the voids that belong to our own inner work. Detachment is not a rejection of love, it is a maturation of it. It is the willingness to see the other as they are, rather than as a projection of our desires. It is the courage to face the pain that arises when we realize that what we sought in another is a reflection of what we must cultivate within ourselves. To begin this process, it is helpful to engage in practices that bring the unconscious to light: journaling, active imagination, therapy. Write letters to the person you struggle to release, not to send them, but to hear your own voice, to understand what it is you are truly seeking. Write also to the child within you, the part of yourself that clings, that fears abandonment, that longs for love. Listen to their voice with compassion. When you feel the pang of yearning, the desire to reach out, pause and ask yourself, what am I truly seeking right now? Is it the person, or is it a feeling of worthiness, of being seen, of being valued? Understand that while another may awaken these feelings, they are not the source, they arise from within you. Detachment requires that we reclaim the parts of ourselves we have projected onto others. If you see strength, independence, or wisdom in the person you struggle to let go of, ask yourself if these qualities are dormant within you, awaiting recognition. When we idolize another, we often disown the very qualities we admire. When we resent another, we often see a reflection of our own unaccepted shadow. Emotional detachment is not a severance. It is a return to the self that we have abandoned in our longing for another. It is a homecoming to the parts of us we have disowned, believing they could only be loved through the eyes of someone else. This process is not without pain. There will be days of grief, moments of aching, times when it feels impossible to release the hold another has on your heart. In these moments, be gentle with yourself. Healing is not a straight path. It spirals, it revisits old wounds, it tests the limits of your patience. But each time you choose to sit with your pain, to understand rather than resist it, you strengthen your capacity for true, unconditional love, the kind that begins within. To emotionally detach is not to cease caring. It is to care in a way that honors both the other and yourself. It is to love without demanding ownership, to cherish without consuming. It is to release the illusion that love can only be real if it is reciprocated in the exact way you desire. Ultimately, detachment is the recognition that you are whole, even when the person you love cannot stay. It is the realization that the love you seek must first be given to yourself. When you reach this place, you can see the other clearly, not as a savior, not as a villain, but as a fellow traveler on the path of self-discovery. If you find yourself struggling to let go, take solace in this. Your longing is not a flaw. It is a testament to your capacity to love deeply. But remember, this love can also be directed inward. The very tenderness you wish to give to another, offer to yourself. The patience you show to someone else's flaws extends to your own heart. Detachment in its truest form is liberation. It is not an end, but a beginning of understanding, of integration, of loving with awareness rather than illusion. When you detach, you do not abandon love, you elevate it. You transform it from a demand to a gift, from a need to a choice. And so, in learning to detach, you are not losing anything, you are reclaiming yourself. The self that is worthy, whole, and complete, just as you are. Emotional detachment, when done consciously, is an act of reclaiming that autonomy. It is the courageous choice to stand apart, not from a place of indifference, but from a place of self-respect. By learning to detach, you are not saying goodbye to love, but rather learning to love in a manner that does not diminish your own sense of self. It is to love without becoming dependent upon that love to feel whole. You are recognizing that your emotional well-being is not reliant upon the presence or approval of another. When you detach emotionally, you create space for growth. This space allows you to reconnect with your true self, to rediscover the parts of you that have been neglected or suppressed. It is through this process that you can begin to find the peace and wholeness that you once sought in someone else. There will be moments of pain, moments when you feel as though you have taken a step backward. But each time you return to yourself, each time you let go a little more, you move closer to the person you are meant to be. This is the work of individuation, becoming the fullest expression of yourself, independent of the external attachments that once defined you. And so, as you embark on this path of emotional detachment, know this: you are not losing love. You are learning to love more deeply, more freely, and more authentically. It is through this freedom that you will discover the peace and contentment you have longed for, not in the possession of another, but in the embrace of your own wholeness. Thank you for sharing this time with me. May you find the courage to face your pain, the wisdom to understand it, and the grace to let go when it is time.